Welcome to the BizDad podcast, where we dive into the melding of fathership and entrepreneurship with your host, the original BizDad himself, Adam Labar. Adam is a Christian, a former Air Force officer, a dad to 3 amazing kids, a coach, a real estate investor, and a business owner. On this podcast, he'll explore the unique journeys of amazing dads who are striving for greatness in both business and family. So whether you're a dad who is an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a man striving to be a better dad, get ready as the BizDad brings you conversations to inspire, challenge, and equip you to be a better dad and entrepreneur. And now, here's Adam.
All right, everybody, welcome to what's up, Dave?
Go. I was going to say, now it's for real. Now I'm being recorded.
Like for real.
Now it'll be out there on the internet forever.
I'm not even going to edit it, so this is going to stay in there, and people can go, oh, crap, that Dave guy, sweet. All right. All right, everybody, welcome to the show. Dave Aheimer is my guest today. Dave and I are in an accountability pod together, in a group together, and he is another, of course, entrepreneur and dad, and so I wanted to bring him on. So Dave, if you can, give a quick introduction about yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do as a dad and an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So my name is Dave Aheimer. I am a dad, an entrepreneur, a member of GoBundance, a husband, and a willing participant in an amazing family who has absolutely saved me from myself. So I've been an entrepreneur longer than I've been a dad. And when my little guy came along, I remember having a very distinct moment of clarity at an entrepreneurs organization event in Ohio, right outside of Cleveland, where I had to make a decision about redefining my win and whether or not my win would be my business or my newly born son, who was in crisis and in distress. And so it was an absolutely life-changing moment for me to make the decision to make my son and my family my win.
Awesome. So it sounds like then your at least in that beginning part, entrepreneur path kind of changed once you had a kid. Is that accurate?
Tremendous. Yeah, it's absolutely correct. So I had been an entrepreneur for several years. CEO of a bootstrap startup that went from 0 to 100 miles an hour basically overnight. And I was running a multi-million-dollar internet retail business, and little Jonathan came along as my happy accidental miracle. He was not intended, but after he came along, his mom had some real problems, and she was unable to provide a stable lifestyle for the child, and so messy and long story involving courts and police and all of the stuff that's so hard to go through and deal with. But when he was 4 months old, I showed up at her mother's residence with a special process server to Lorain County sheriffs and an order from a magistrate for temporary emergency custody. There was an ensuing battle for about a year to go through this, but at the end of the day, the court system of Ohio awarded dad full custody and mom no visitation rights, just to give you an idea of how bad that situation is. Right. And, I was given this advice. Hold on and don't let go. Hold on to that little boy and don't let go. And I am so glad that I did. My son is now 7 years old. When he was a year and 7 or 8 months or so, Flavia came into our life, and at that point in his life, she was his Flavie, not his mommy, and very soon she became his mommy. And after she and I got married, she aggressively pursued adoption of my son, and now we are a real big happy family, and we've got a 7-year-old son, Jonathan, and a 8-month-old daughter, Isis, who has decided to come and join the party. So good and getting better.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So I want to go back to a couple things. One, and maybe you could tell me through your experience, because I've never had to go through it, but as a military guy, I've seen a lot of divorces and a lot of people, obviously everybody's seen a lot of divorces. It just seems to be rather rampant in the military, similar to, suicides and some, like crazy life decisions tend to happen. And it 9 times out of 10, what I see is the woman leaves with the kids and the dad maybe gets to see them during the summer once in a while. And that's about it. Right. Recently I've heard some people talking about like, and I could see how this might be true is we get so defeated as men in even desiring to go through that legal battle, because it's like, well, what are my chances of, like, it's not even worth going. And then our lawyers tell us the same thing. Like, it's not even worth fighting because you don't have X, Y, and Z. And you said, no, this is totally worth fighting. I'm going to hold on and don't let go. Do you think that, had you not fought the way you did, would you still have been able to have the custody? Do you think that there's some truth behind the men just kind of give up because we feel like we're behind the 8 ball already? Or like, how do you feel about that situation?
I think it's really difficult for men. I think what happened to me was an extreme circumstance where, mom had some, pretty severe intravenous drug problems. And, when my son was born, he was born with a neonatal abstinence syndrome. And so there were even like signs of withdrawal in my son, from birth. She and I had a very clear understanding that the two of us wouldn't be together. There was a shared parenting agreement that, we worked out on the advice of my attorney. And she had a very, very nice situation with, a home and money coming in every month and everything that was set up the way that it needed to be. And when I found out that, she was in fact using intravenous drugs and that the child was being affected, being left alone or taken on runs to go to the east side of Cleveland to go pick up the stuff, that kind of thing. And there was some even worse stuff. Some of my things went missing. Collection of watches and, the kid's iPad, and it was all signs point towards very bad. And so, with some help from my friends, we were able to uncover, evidence of what was going on. And then with my attorney, bring this to a magistrate and demonstrate with evidence and witness testimony, that some really bad things were going on. And, that magistrate was one who had I don't mess around with drugs kind of mindset, and so that was another like amazing win to get, a magistrate who was interested in truly in the protection of the child and not necessarily mom versus dad kind of situation. So she stepped in and provided me an opportunity for an emergency custody order. And again, Jonathan was 4 months, almost 5 months old at that point. So very, very, very young. And so that kind of like child endangerment, was proven in a court of law. And then beyond that, it was a matter of holding on and showing up. And this nonsense went on for a year, and it was $50,000 in legal fees. And it was, many times that I did want to give up because it was very distracting from my business and it was very distracting from my life. But, I had that little guy in my arms and in my life, and no idea how to take care of him and no idea how to move on. And, for me, what I saw was little Dave, right? So I had little Dave in my arms, and I recognized that, my background and how I was raised and brought up, we had everything we need, but we didn't necessarily have all of the emotional content, right? For good and healthy development. And like, I saw myself in that little guy, and, maybe this was me trying to save me, and maybe that still is, but how it worked out in the end is he's the one who's saving me. So awesome. Thank God for the opportunity. But to anybody out there who's struggling with a similar situation, I will give the same advice that I was given is you show up and you hold on. You do your job. If that means putting up with weird visitation with, third party psychologists for supervised presentation, then you do that. Mm-hmm. If you got to go show up downtown and take a Minnesota multiphasic personality exam to prove that you're not a psycho, then you do that. And you do so graciously, happily, and willingly, because The kid's the one who's important. And it's not my pride that was important at that time. It was the kid that was the one who was important. Just keep him, her, or them in the forefront of your mind. And you do the thing that you have to do in order to make the right kind of environment from them, no matter how bitter that pill might be to swallow. That's what I think my job is as a dad. That's what I tell my son today. My job is to protect him. Yeah. That's what I do. That's what I have to do. And that's how I feel good about me. And I feel good about going through a terrible situation, is to keep him at the forefront of my mind. And now there's two, to keep them at the forefront of my mind.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's, I wrote it down still, that hold on and don't let go is one of those things that you can't, I don't know. I love being a dad. I don't know how, I've seen so many dads just walk away, and I try to tell them, I said, you're going to impact your kids one way or another. Do you want to impact them living in the house, or do you want to impact them living somewhere else while somebody else is living in the house? Right. You're going to impact your kids. Hold on and don't let go. Like, it just, and I think that's, equivalent in business stuff too, right? When we have business issues and we're going through things, we don't just give up and walk away. We don't just go, oh, well, here comes a legal battle, I'm not going to have to deal with it. No, we fight for our businesses all the daggum time. Like, there's legal battles, there's lawsuits, there's problems, there's getting close to not being able to make payroll, and you hold on and don't let go. Like, that you want to do this, so you do it. And I don't know, it baffles me to watch some people walk away. So I want to congratulate you on pushing through so hard and making that effort, man. That's freaking, I love it.
I appreciate that. And I understand. I really do. I understand the extreme nature of the stress. This went on with my son from mid 2016 to mid 2017. And, I had about a year and a half that it was pretty good there. And in 2019, prior to the pandemic, I ran into some very significant problems with my business and just unbelievable stress. It was the same year that my wife and I got married. We got married in the spring, and then the business problems really started. And it was, without a doubt, one of the most challenging times in my life. And if I had not had them in my life, my wife and my little boy, Adam, I got to tell you, I don't know what I would have done. And it's kind of the same principle, right? You hold on, you don't let go. You do your job. You show up. And sometimes that means showing up early and making coffee for the boys and staying late and making sure the accounting's done. But those, at the end, it's maybe one part stubborn, one part labor of love. Like trying to make sure and just not quit and be tenacious about moving forward as an entrepreneur. And it's a lot like an EKG. Fatherhood, it has its ups and downs. Business, it has its ups and downs. And some years are going to be great and some years are going to be really tough, right? But keeping them at the forefront of my mind, that they're the ones who are more important, even more important than the business. And at the end of the day, with the inbound pandemic, I had this internet retail business that was selling home decor. Everybody's stuck at home, buying a bunch of stuff on the internet, fixing up their houses. And my business took off like a rocket ship during the pandemic. And that was almost as bad as it was in 2019, because now I'm working triple hours and I'm the guy coming in with the boys in the shop and running the wood shop and running production and running internet retail and producing this home decor and shipping it out. And I saw them even less when the business was really, really good. And I made a decision at that point that this is not what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I didn't want to run this kind of internet retail manufacturing company in Northeast Ohio for the next 10 years. And so with that spike in pandemic growth, I seized on an opportunity to sell my business and exit my business and took that time to spend it with my wife and my son. I came out of that business at the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. My wife is Brazilian. One of the first things that we got done was the finalization of the adoption of Jonathan. And we took him to visit his family in Brazil, to have this amazing wedding in Brazil. And we had, 150 people or so and all these flowers and candies and fans, and not anybody speaks a word of English to my son. He's just absorbing the language like crazy. And he got to stay with his Brazilian grandma and his Brazilian auntie for almost 5 weeks while we took our honeymoon. So we went to the Maldives and we went to Egypt, and our son, we placed him in a Montessori school here in Brazil, and he got the opportunity to pick up the Portuguese language in about 45 days with his grandma and his auntie and this new school. And so again, as a result of hanging on and not letting go and showing up and doing the work and doing my job, now I have this amazing second home in Brazil with my son and my daughter, who can appreciate their mother's culture and have learned their language. And I'm learning the language too. Eu falo português. Any Brazilians out there that might be listening, I'm trying to keep up with them. But he's got this amazing opportunity and a new life, all the things that I didn't have. And I get to take pride in that. I get to be comforted that little Dave is being taken care of in the way that I needed to. I was at Tahoe and I heard Dr. Kelly, talking about, every one of us is just waiting on a love letter. And at the end of the day, we have to write that love letter to ourselves, and we have to take care of ourselves. And I got to write that love letter to myself through my actions of taking care of Jonathan and making my family the most important thing that it could possibly be for my life. And they have blossomed as a result, and I have blossomed as a result, and they saved me. I did the work. They saved me. Go figure.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the way it goes. The kids change you. And it's, I left the military after years and years of service, and people thought I was absolutely crazy. But, looking at my son and having him, cry to me, "Don't leave again, Daddy," was enough for me to kind of go, yeah, I got to figure something else out. Right. I mean, it completely, like, he saved me, right? He's the reason that I'm, and now they are all the reason that I'm, doing this podcast. I work from home. I, run businesses, and it's a lot of fun, and I get to involve them in it. And, it's, I don't know. I couldn't imagine, life differently now, going back into the office and doing the Air Force thing anymore. I couldn't imagine, not picking my boys up from school and, having those chats with them. So tell me a little bit, I want to rewind, back to that, 2019 timeframe, right? Your Jonathan was born, what, 2016?
16. Yeah.
Math is good. 2016. Jonathan's 3 years old. Business starts really hurting. Talk to me a little bit about the struggles in the business and what that did with the family, and how you kind of still were able to keep some sort of a semblance of a balance, or if you were at all able to keep some sort of semblance of a balance.
I'd say that I could have handled that better. There's no doubt about that. I had the beginning of 2018, I made a choice to separate myself from the day-to-day operation within the business, and I brought in a president to run that organization for me. And this guy, this is on me. At the end of the day, leadership and the organization and how the organization performs, it's on me. I didn't give him the right training, or I abdicated responsibility instead of trust but verify, or whatever the case may be. We suffered a pretty significant loss in gross revenue, and that gross revenue caused the business to contract. And anybody who works in internet retail will tell you it's a momentum machine. Mm-hmm. And you got momentum going up, you're doing awesome. You got momentum going down, it's really hard to change it and pull it around. And that gentleman left the business after just 1 year of employment, and walking into 2019, I made a decision to come back in and take a different hand, and I tried to spin up a different business inside of that business. And where we were doing canvas wall decor, I decided that we were going to do framed under glass, and it seemed like a pretty similar product to me. Short stories, spent a couple $100,000, like getting a new product line up and running, and equipment, and ultimately this part of the business failed. And the other part of the business was momentum in the wrong direction, with the compounding effect that brought me to a place where I was having, long days, sleepless nights, overeating, not caring for myself appropriately as far as like my morning routine was concerned. And it's really unfortunate, Adam, that, and maybe some of the people out there can understand what I'm talking about. But for me, my tendency is when I'm having this kind of difficult time and all of this stress, then I tend to take it out on the ones that I love the most, which doesn't make any sense at all. Like, it's not a rational thing to do, but I'm on point and trying to do all of the things and showing up and holding on and not letting go. And I come home and I get too easily frustrated by a comment from my wife, or frustrated for any number of reasons. And it's a really difficult time in my family. And, this is where I really need to give the credit to my wife, because she is a kind and patient woman. And she showed up and she did her job by hanging on and not letting go, because a couple of times there, I probably, if she had let me walk away, I might have done so and folded under the stress, but she refused to let me walk away. And she was as she so often likes to refer to it, as I'm the CEO of business and finance, and she's the CEO of the family and spirituality. And she really stepped up as a leader in our family to keep us together. And so that became very important. And for me later on, when I really fully appreciated just how much she had done for us and done for the family, and kind of a, slap in the face reminder to me to make sure that I'm treating her appropriately, that I'm honoring her and making sure that I make time for her. And our relationship has improved dramatically with the sale of the business and with the pandemic and spending all of that time together. I know there's a lot of folks out there who had really hard times in their marriage because they're not spending time with their spouses, and now they're stuck with them, and they find out, oh yeah, guess what? We don't really work well together anymore, or we don't really get along as well as we thought we did. We had this amazing opportunity after our hard experience in 2019, where we learned to appreciate each other with taking date nights once a week. We bought this little deck of cards that were date night questions, where we'd ask one another questions and get to know one another better during our once a week date night, and making sure that was a priority, and going into building that foundation. And that's her. It's the stuff that she came up with. I'm lucky to have that kind of support, Adam. I got to tell you.
Well, it's like God designed it to have you guys work together. And,
sure did.
Have husbands and wives do things together. What do you know? That's crazy.
What do you know? It's almost like a system.
It's almost
like a system where you get like a partner. Yeah. And, thankfully she's my opposite in all things, because if she was anything similar to me with my drive, determination, and ambition, it would be something like Highlander, only one can stand, only one remains. There could be only one.
And you haven't had your head cut off yet. So we know
no, not at all.
You're still good. I mean, we're all
still good.
So you obviously, you sold the business, what, in 21?
Yeah. December 31st, 2020.
Okay. So selling it December 31st, 2020, took some time off. I mean, you're running other stuff now. You're doing business stuff now. So what did you take from the hard times, that immediately went into the good times that were able to make a successful exit? And now you're firing stuff back up again. Still, now you have, an extra kid involved. So now you got 2 kids, a wife, you're living in Brazil, and you're still running businesses. So, obviously you took some time off. You took some information from what your experiences were previously. Tell me how that applies now and what you're doing.
Yeah, very much. So I have business interests in Brazil and business interests in the United States. I'm doing a couple of different things in both countries, and, maintain homes in both countries. And, it is, maybe I've just matured as a business person, but I do evaluate the level of work that I'm putting into an opportunity for the return, and how hard I'm working, and really try to focus on working on the business models and working on the business rather than working in it, which is a remarkable departure from my initial mentality. And it's my background with that, stereotypical Protestant work ethic. Like, you need to work hard and long in order to succeed, which I've found, later in my business life is just, it's not the case. Yes, you need to work hard, but you also need to work smart. Yes. And you need to make sure that, I need to be very, selective with my time and how I'm spending my time. And part of that is saying no to opportunities. And part of that is saying no to the demands of others on my time. And another really great part of it is an organization like GoBundance in these masterminds. I've heard it said that, I am the average of the 5 people that I spend the most time with. And so I make sure that I'm spending my time with other like-minded, positive, growth-oriented individuals. And my goodness, you just wouldn't believe the opportunity that comes when you're spending your time with those kind of folks. And I'll note also, my friends here in Brazil are extremely family-oriented. And so we have a group of close friends, and we go and we play beach tennis and we play volleyball, and we've got their kids involved. And, you know, when we have a churrasco, a barbecue at my house on Sunday, there's 17 people running around. And these are, you know, other actively engaged moms and dads and other kids that call me uncle, right? Oh, Chio Dave, which means uncle. And it's really nice to have that in my life. And that's something that I wouldn't have had in my life if I had remained mired in the business that I was operating. And maybe that's it. Maybe it was because it was my first really successful business, and it was my baby, and I was a CEO of it for 10 years. And, you know, when I left it, there was a little bit of difficulty there with the new mindset. And I lost a little bit of my identity because I wasn't the CEO leader of the organization. And now I'm a businessman, and I involve myself in investments and equity interests in business. But my priority remains, being smart about how I spend my time and being smart about how I schedule my time so that I have time for my family and my friends and churrasco and volleyball and going to Disney, because my wife loves it so much. And I love that she loves it.
I love that she
You can tell from my face probably a little bit. I'm so happy to go to Disney so frequently. But she, you know, our stateside home's in Orlando, and she just loves going there. And I love bringing the kids and getting them their Mickey Mouse time, which is not something that I got to do. And that's all that time I spent in the business in Ohio.
Yeah, of course. You know, you mentioned something that you almost, one thing we talk about with military folks, right? We've got obviously a really bad suicide problem, right? When you're talking 22 veterans a day, committing suicide, right? That's a ridiculous amount. And one of the things that that people believe that is that they lose focus on a mission, right? When you're in the military, you have a mission. You've kind of identified as being, you know, a soldier, a Marine, an airman, a sailor, whatever you are, a guardian for the new Space Force folks, right? You know, you've had this mission all the time. And then when you get out, you don't have a mission anymore. Your identity has been tied into being whatever the government told you your identity needs to be. And I see it a lot in the business world too, is we identify as whatever our business is that we're running, right? And if you hold on to that identity, when you may have a small crisis, like, you know, you kind of alluded to a little bit, like, you know, now it's gone. You're no longer in charge of this business. It's not your thing anymore. Like, did you have an identity issue when you left that, or, you know, like, what was it like overcoming that? And, you know, did your family help you kind of work through that? I mean, obviously you spent a lot of time with your family after that, so I would imagine they did, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. So, were there identity issues leaving that? And how did you fix those when you started doing this now?
Yeah, I think the best response there is purpose and community involvement. Right. And I hear what you're saying about the veterans and the suicide rate. And it's an absolute tragedy. That's why the projects like what Charlie Engle's doing with aerial recovery, with repurposing veterans, is just such an amazing and tremendous opportunity for these veterans and for people, because you gain purpose and you gain community involvement. And I see this, you know, with work in drug and alcohol rehabilitation facilities all the time. Like the people that remain sober are the ones who find purpose through community involvement and 12-step work and working with others. And it's about the others. It's about making the others more important than yourself. And so, like, my identity crisis that came out of that business, I was very much enjoying my time with my wife and my child and my extended family. And Flavia and I we did 4 continents in 2021. And we did a 8,000 mile road trip in the United States and visited 23 states and 27 cities. it was just absolutely tremendous, the things that were going on with my family. But inside, I was having some crisis around what my identity was now that I've left my business. And I had purpose, and I had a role, and I had a title. And I think these are very important things for a man, to have a purpose and a role and a title and, active involvement within a community. And I can understand, feelings of loss and feelings of displacement around losing that role, losing that mission, if you will. It's incredibly important, especially for men. As a man, I can say it. I know it's incredibly important. And I had to go through a redefinition of what my role was and spend some time with, I went through, the Simon Sinek exercises of find your why and really doing some deep dives on my core values, because I was afforded that opportunity with the time and, the capital necessary to take my time with going through this. And what came out of the wash was I found that I really, really got a lot of spiritual and emotional energy out of working one-on-one with people. And what that translated for me was, starting a business around CEO coaching and helping guys start businesses and create purpose for themselves, specifically for the impact of bettering the lives of themselves and their families and their communities. Because when we get raised up and we have these, successful businesses and get to be successful members of our community, we have a lot of pride, we have a lot of fulfillment, we improve our lives and the lives of those around us. And again, compounding effect, a lot of momentum occurs there. And I look back at my life and I know that
you didn't say anything about chasing money in there.
Nothing.
No. What do you know?
Not a thing. Not a thing. Not a thing. No, my why is to inspire 1 million entrepreneurs to do what I did and go from, bootstrap nothing into something.
Yeah.
Right. And that connection, it's really, really important that it's about the connection and it's about the people and it's about fulfillment. And, you go talk to guys in office. I don't think any one of them is going to say, oh, I wish I could have padded an extra zero in my bank account. Yeah. It's about, I wish I'd taken the time with my family, or I wish I had taken the time to be connected or reconnect with my parents or my siblings or relationships, fulfillment through relationships and fulfillment through community involvement. And that is just unbelievably impactful for me. I get goosebumps right now actually talking about it, but that connection with other people, that sure. God moment, if you will, like that is fulfilling to me on a level that I can't even begin to describe. And I've made my own destiny around, kind of chasing those moments and trying to be impactful and involved with other people towards the betterment of themselves and the betterment of the people around them. I mean, if there's anything that I believe in more than anything else, it's your individual capacity for change. Everyone has the capacity for change with them. And you can make the world a better place. I really, really believe that. And it's just such a wonderful thing to be able to start with the ones that I touch and impact on a daily basis, which is my family and my role as a father.
How do you take that as your role as a father? Like, how do you teach your, at this point, 7-year-old and not even 1-year-old? Obviously, you're not teaching this at the 1-year-old, but to the 7-year-old, what are you trying to instill to show, like, hey, like one of the things I tell my son is the only person in the entire universe that is going to stop him from achieving his goals is himself. He's it, right? Now, whether or not that hits, I don't know. I guess time will tell. I have to keep working on that. But what is it that you're doing with your previous experiences and thoughts on trying to train your kids in that thought process, in having those whys, in having that understanding that they control their future?
Yeah. So I think, we do a lot of clear discussion around what the values of the family are, right? And we recognize that, in teachable moments with our son and with both of our children, that they're, it's a lot easier with babies because it's, they cry and they're requesting attention and attachment, right? And then you respond by taking care of them, feeding them, cleaning them, patting them and calming them. And then they bond, right? And so like to nurture and encourage that bonding cycle, that attachment cycle with Jonathan is when he's making these little bids for attention on a daily basis, that I'm aware that my son is making a bid for attention with me and that I'm responding appropriately and positively. And so one of my goals on my one sheet is to play when I'm asked, right? When he asks me to play, it's not, oh, I'm busy, oh, I've got something else going on. It's I recognize those other things are not as important as this moment. He's making a bid for attention, and I want to bond with him. I want to encourage that. And so, to answer your question shortly, I'm modeling the appropriate behavior with him at a young age that I know will provide him satisfaction and fulfillment in his relationships and roles in the future. And so, like, that's breaking an unhealthy cycle and building a healthy cycle generationally, and not like sharing generational trauma, to like be very, very cognizant of his needs and that those needs are being met. That doesn't mean letting him get away with anything. And it certainly doesn't mean buying him a bunch of crap he doesn't need. In our family, you get one gift. If it's your birthday or if it's Christmas, we're well off. He could have a lot of different gifts, and he does have a lot of different toys, but this is from my wife. This is what, who loves is who cares. And so you show that care through affection, and you show that care through bonding and time together. Show that care through trips to Disney. Yay.
I'd much rather go on a trip than give 15 gifts they're going to think about next month,
And they will absolutely not remember the gift they got when they were 7 years old, but they will remember the time that we got to go hug Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I tell people my youngest was born in Japan, right? So we were lucky enough that, he was overseas already when he was born. But when we moved to America, he was 7 months old, and the U.S. was his sixth country that he'd been to. So we traveled all over the place with him as a tiny baby. He's not going to remember any of it. So now we got to redo all of those trips again. But his older brother still remembers bouncing to this country and going and, eating, like we literally ate food that was cooked over a volcano, right? And he's like, I remember the chicken we cooked that was cooked over, So he's like, this is awesome.
Great.
But we've got 5 million toys in the toy room that he probably won't remember any of them next year, right? So, I'm a huge fan of the experience. I love that thought process on one gift. And my wife and I had been talking about that for years. And by the time Christmas comes around, we've already bought 7 gifts, and it's like,
it's hard. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do. It's the way that love and affection was shown in my family. And it's like gifts and acts of service. Like those are my love languages. And so, I go on a trip and I'm bringing home a toy, and my wife is like, again, with the toys, why with the toys? And I'm like, it didn't occur to me, but I attach, like love and affection with the act of gift giving, and like just understanding that about myself. It helps me to move away from that behavior and establish a different behavior around the gifts. And my wife also encourages his development within our spiritual group. And, we go to our group, whatever it might be for every individual out there, but if you have that to lean into that focus and have those conversations the way that I have that conversation with an adult. And he has a surprising capacity to communicate on an adult level. Now, I know he's 7 and he doesn't necessarily get abstract reasoning and thinking the way that we do, but treating him like an adult, providing him with choices. You can choose to go to your bed and brush your teeth on your way, or I can pick you up and carry you up the stairs to your bed. What do you prefer? And either way, we're going to bed. But I'm not yelling at him and telling him, oh, you better go do this or else. No, you have a choice. And every one of those little choices that he has the opportunity to make, he gets to understand the outcome and accept responsibility for those outcomes and understand what consequences are, which are tough giving kids consequences, because if I'm going to put somebody in prison, then guess what? I have to be the jailer. And now I'm in prison too. Right. Yeah. And that's not fun for anybody. And that's a difficult road to go down. So it's really a fine balance. And I'm not saying I get it right all the time. I'm sure I screw up. And I'll be happy to, sit in a therapy session with my son later on, and we can talk about how I screwed up. Take responsibility for it, because I am what I am. Yeah. But I'm driven toward it. He's like, why? Why did you was always with the business stuff, Dad? Why? What core values? What do I care about core? Okay, well, maybe I should have waited on the core values till you were at least 10 instead of getting at you at 7. I don't know.
So we did a Fambundance trip out in Colorado. I don't know, 3 years ago, something like that. And we sat down and did family core values, right? And the core values are going to change, right? Because I want to involve the kids, right? I think my oldest was 5 or 6 at the time, right? So not a ton of involvement and really knowing even what a core value is, but you can understand, like, we can have conversations with him. He was able to talk about trips and how much he loved doing that. Sure. And he was, so our core values were around, like, what is it that our family really wants to do? And, that we have core values in our businesses. Like, and we have mentors in our businesses and what we want to do there. So why would we not have core values with our family and mentors for our family and with our kids and, pushing all that stuff through? It makes sense. So, I wouldn't say that, you never know. Maybe you and I will both be in the therapy sessions with our kids next to us later on. But I think that it's, we took what we understood from what we grew up and were lacking when we grew up and what we don't want our kids to be lacking in. And also what we've learned through our lives to, that we think is best for our kids. And that's the most we can do as long as we're doing what you'd already mentioned, right? Actively thinking about it. Like, you understand what your why is, why you're doing what you're doing, not just the big why that you're chasing, the Simon Sinek why, but why am I actually doing this step in this as well? Why am I reacting this way with my son? Why am I saying this thing with my son? Why am I giving gifts to my son every time I go in? Because I was doing this to make up for when I didn't get gifts or how I felt like I needed it. And, we have to think about those things. That's how we're going to become better dads, better husbands, better entrepreneurs, I think, even, we can run our business better if we're thinking about our actions. Like, why am I doing this thing in my business? Oh, because I feel like it was what I missed in my last business, or, I'm chasing something or whatever it is. Like, constantly having that introspection and thinking through the process, I think makes a huge difference.
Self-awareness.
Yeah.
Self-awareness and understanding that growth, lies outside of a comfort zone. And that, anytime that I'm feeling discomfort or even fear is an opportunity for that growth. It's an opportunity to lean into the thing. And it is not, easy for me or for my wife to have conversations with my son about his adoption, but he knows his story. Mm-hmm. And and we've watched YouTube videos and we've read the book. There's a wonderful book called The Adoption Tree where, the tree had to be taken from the forest where it was too shady and planted in the backyard where it could get lots of sun and light and water and love so that it could grow healthy. And sometimes those things happen. And, we've had these open discussions about, what it means for, the police to come and have to take a baby away and how that, and he comes from that history and I don't want him to internalize any of these negative thoughts or values around that backstory. So I choose not to say anything bad here. What I say is that sometimes good people make bad decisions and sometimes good people make bad decisions over and over again. And there's consequences and we need to understand what consequences are. And one of those consequences was that, you're now separated from birth mom and you have heart mom and Flavia's heart mom. And he's got this wonderful picture that he made with a certificate with his adoption where he drew a heart on a paper and he's showing everybody his heart certificate for his heart mom. And he was 5 years old when we're having these discussions with him. And it's again, the resiliency of children is absolutely amazing. It's the adults that have difficulty with it. The kids are fine. And they're little sponges. They're going to learn to feel about things the way that I show them to feel about it. So I want them to understand that no topics are taboo and that we can discuss anything about his history or his background. Or, I was making the joke about winding up in therapy with dad, but there's a little bit of truth to that. Understanding that dad's a person and dad's going to make mistakes. And we have, we hold out the reset button whenever somebody's got a problem. That's, if he's got the bad behavior and he needs to have a reset, then we're going to reset our behaviors and continue on in that moment. That goes for dad too. Sometimes dad has to be the one to say, I need to initiate the reset button because I was sharper than I needed to be, or I'm sorry that I responded that way.
That's awesome. Yeah. the language that we use both in ourselves, our kids, like the words that we use. And I catch myself, there was times, I'll tell a funny story, that to kind of just show a small amount of it, but there's some very serious stories to take in there as well. But, my oldest, teaching him how to go to the bathroom, right? Hey, boys stand up to go potty, girls sit down to go potty. And this is all going really well. But the words I used were boys sit down to go or boys stand up to go potty and girls sit down to go potty. And what I should have said was boys stand up to pee and girls sit down to pee. Because when it came time to learn how to, he was like, absolutely not. I will not sit down. Girls sit down on the toilet, and it took so much work for me to really to get him to sit down on the toilet because he's like, I'm not a girl, and it's like, okay, all right. Did not think about this, right?
There was a couple of cleanup consequences.
There were some problems we had there, right? So, but just like that is obviously at a very comical minor way, right? But using that later on, okay, what words am I using around golf, right? My oldest loves both of them. They absolutely love to golf. My son and I had just had a golf tournament over the weekend. And we play second place. I know you already know that, but we could play second place, which was awesome. Out of two teams, but I mean, no, kidding. There was more than that, but we shot even par.
A win's a win.
It was a really good time. We did awesome. As an 8-year-old, he got 2 pars himself that I did 0 help on, which is good because I missed the green completely, and he did a great job getting on. And but anyways, the words that I'm using on the golf course make a massive difference in how he reacts, and just my facial expressions make a difference in how he reacts and what's going on. And it's, I have to catch myself all the time being a former military guy. I used to be a very angry former military guy, right? Back in my enlisted time after, getting done with Iraq and Afghanistan, and I was, in Korea and doing stuff over there. And I was the guy they would call on when I was in Korea, like, hey, we've got a problem child, Adam, go fix it. So I was the guy that would go fix the problems, which was creating more of a problem inside me, right? But the words I used there were crap, they weren't helpful. And it wasn't until later on when I realized, okay, well, I was creating a very bad pattern, a very bad habit with doing this back then, that traveled on to, in even into my marriage and then into being a dad. And it's like, okay, well, I need to adjust the way I say things, my facial expressions. Once in a while, those facial expressions still come back out. And it's like, okay. And I could just see it, just take away the soul from my child when he sees that look on daddy's face. And it's like, okay, well, it's time for dad to get on his knee and apologize and say, I'm sorry. This is not how dad should be reacting. This is not how it,
right.
And being that self-aware dad that says, hey, I need to know that, you're taken care of, and you need to know that you're taken care of. And it's an exhausting time, but golly, I love it. It's so much fun.
It is. It is difficult. And, just to speak to that point, that self-awareness and that capacity to go down to one knee and make the apology, those are just like going to the gym. The more you do it, you're going to work that muscle and get stronger and stronger with it and be more, aware of changes in mood and emotional intelligence is like that. It's just like going to the gym. The more you work with it or like meditation or like any other number of self-improvement things, the more you do them, the easier they're going to be in the future. And the easier it is going to be to recognize. And that opens the door for, modeling the behavior for my son to show him that, this is a man takes responsibility for his actions. And, you don't let the sun go down on your anger. And, it's important to address matters as they come up so that they don't build. And it's okay. It's okay to have mad feelings or sad feelings, and that's not a problem. And you're allowed to. It's not a finger shake. Don't you ever, and always be quiet and always be well behaved. Consequences to actions, of course, and those will be meted out. But feelings are okay to have, and dad understands.
Feelings are okay to have. Acting on them is not.
Right.
We just don't act on the feelings, right?
Right. You're not allowed to act out in a negative way.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to act out in a negative way. You're allowed to be mad. That's all right. But you can't say the thing that you said to your mommy because that's disrespectful talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that you said it that way, I'm not sure I want to say this next sentence, but I'm going to anyways. It's similar like when we're at work, right? And we're trying to run a business. It's okay that we have emotions and we're angry at certain things, but
Right.
to act out in that anger with our employees, to act out in that anger with our customers, to whatever, like that's not great. And to me, working from home, if my my son gets to watch me after I pick him up, if I'm reacting a certain way, I mean, I'm constantly sending messages or sending audio things or listening to things, so he gets to see how I interact with other adults, and I need to be able to always represent a mature way of communicating with somebody, even if inside I'm very angry about something. You don't act out in that, right? Like if you want to run the business well and you want to have employees that like you, don't do what I used to do when I was in Korea. Don't be that guy. That's not the manager that you need. That's not the business owner we need. So, and it's certainly not the dad the kids need. That's for sure.
That's just it. Leaders eat last, right? It's about taking care of the group. And it's about making sure that, the group feels safe and secure and that we're protecting the people inside of the circle from the bad things that are coming after you outside of the circle, and ensuring that the people in the organization know that, and making space for, as a leader in my business, to make space for healthy conversations around bad behaviors or negative outcomes. And that again doesn't necessarily mean that we're talking about a bad person. We're talking about a good person who's made some poor decisions. Yeah. Right. And that needs to be addressed for the good of the group. Yeah. And that it's about taking care of the group and taking care of the family, and being a leader of a family and a leader of a business is so similar. I mean, they inform one another so well in my life. And, I've lessons in entrepreneurship have made me a better father, and lessons in fatherhood have certainly made me a better employer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like you have, such a different heart afterwards and a different thought process behind everything after having kids.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about, if there is any desire, or what are your thoughts with, running the businesses, and as the kids are growing up, you're likely never going to stop being an entrepreneur. It's kind of one of those things that once we start doing business stuff, it's kind of hard to walk away from that. It's just it's a lot of fun. It's a new adventure every day. Sure. Like I want to involve my kids in as much as they want to be involved. Like I don't want to force it, but do you have any thoughts or ideas or plans to involve the kids in the business, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting question, because I have an appreciation for where I'm at in life, because I was a have-not who had to learn to become a person who has. And my son's grown up with a tremendous advantage here, being a have and not really experiencing the have-not lifestyle or have-not mentality. And so I think it's important that he works for his own destiny and works his own path, and I want to make sure that happens. And as far as like his involvement in my businesses, of course I'd be thrilled, to have him involved in the businesses in any capacity they want to be involved in the businesses. But I also want him to choose his own path and go his own road. And so that's a balance that's going to have to occur with time. Now, that being said, I have finance and economics conversations with my kid all the time, which probably are a little bit over his head for being a 7-year-old. But, it starts with, he gets the equivalent of a $20 allowance per month. And, there's X number of doggy poops that he's got to pick up in order for that allowance to materialize. So understanding the value of labor and, the value of his recompense is certainly not enough to get the toy that he wants when we go to the toy store. And so we're understanding the value of savings, through object lessons, and I make sure that he understands, what finance is and the difficult nature of earning money, and even more difficult nature of delayed gratification, and teaching what delayed gratification looks like, and, how saving. And I talk about this with my guys in the CEO coaching, but to be an entrepreneur is to live like most people won't, so that you can live like most people can't, and it's about that sacrifice. And at least from a bootstrap startup perspective, it's about sacrifice and putting the business first, and understanding that I might not get paid in the first couple of whatever months, years, hopefully not a decade. Might be the wrong business if it's that far out. but, long-term investing. And, my son has the opportunity to deposit his $20 into daddy's wallet and earn long-term interest. And he has yet to make that choice. So,
my nephew actually made that choice, and it was a good
yeah,
time.
he did. He got him to make it.
Yeah, so he gave me the $20. I wanted to invest it, and I put it in with I put it in, quote unquote, right, with a property that we bought. So he after we sold the property, I told him, I said, well, you could take your return, and this is what your return would be, or you can you can double down and play again, right? And he was
right.
Just keep it going, keep it going.
Keep it going. Just keep
but
it
of
rolling.
course, I think he's 14, so I mean, he understands a little bit differently.
Sure, he's
right?
a little bit older. He's a little bit older.
I bought him Rich Dad Poor Dad for teens, right? So they've got a teens version of. Just like I bought our au pair when we had, I bought her Rich Dad Poor Dad in Spanish so that she could read it and understand a little bit about the family that she's involved in, and how all this goes. So, but getting them started and thinking about the stuff. And I mean, I love what you're talking about with the, it takes this amount of poop getting picked up before you get to go and get your earnings. So while you're saying that, I could just think of like, my son, what he would probably be doing if I set it up that way is he'd be like, okay, well, if I feed the dog 4 extra times a day, then we'll have more. I can pick up okay, this is what I'm going to do. All of a sudden, my dog's going to be this big, and he's going to have a big, thick wallet because he's picked up all this.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That would be the way my son would probably think about it. But
that's exactly right.
But I mean, that's exactly part of the process is having those discussions and where how the I tell people that I don't mind if my son joins the military. I don't mind if my son's joined the military or my daughter. My daughter's due next month at the time of this recording, but. I don't care if any one of them or all of them join the military. I just don't want it to be the only option like it was for me, right? So if I can kind of open those doors, and there's so many in GoBundance, you had said so many things I wanted to comment on, but you had said something along the lines of, you are a have-not, and now, you're not raising a child that's a have-not, you're raising a child that's a have. How do you do that, right? And one guy was like, no. It was a GoBundance guy. He's like, no, I make sure I tell my sons all the time, no. Daddy's wealthy. You are not. You are very, very poor. Like, Daddy is.
It's a great reminder. It's a great reminder of the difference between what's earned and what you have and what you don't. So
if you want to be wealthy, I'm showing you and giving you the tools to do it, but daddy is wealthy. You are not, young man.
That's a really fair point, because when we talk about going to the mall and going out to dinner, I'm sure he got this from my wife too. It's like, no. I don't have money. Daddy has money. Daddy's going to take us out to dinner.
No, daddy has money. So daddy's taking himself out to dinner. Good luck, guys.
That's the whole thing. Like getting them to understand, and I took him into the toy store and I'm explaining to him, like, you got your equivalent to $20. It's 100 reais here in Brazil. You got your 100 reais, and you can earn 100% interest in 1 month's time. You give that to me right now, and next month you'll have 200 reais in your pocket, or you can go buy a toy. Yeah, I'm gonna go buy a toy. The kids, you gotta probably figure out a different way to get that message across. I'm sure there's more clever ways.
Have it on a piece of paper, like a piece of paper.
Sure.
Had you not bought that toy that you don't even remember, now you'd have you'd have these 300 reais at this point.
Yeah, like John Lithgow on The Third Rock from the Sun. This pile represents the tip you could have earned. With the waitress.
Exactly. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I try to do various different things with the kids. So I love getting ideas from other people on how they're involving the kids in the business, or teaching them about money. Especially, I mean, your son is almost the same age as my son, 8 and 7. So, it's fun to watch their brains work through those different things with money. And even with golf, I've set it up to where, okay, well, if you get a birdie, you get paid this much. If you get an eagle, you get paid this much. If you get, and he's like, all right. So he got a par the other day. He's like, so I get $1 for that par, right? I said, yeah, buddy, you get $1 for the par. And only because you did it all by yourself, this is so, you're doing things like working hard is going to help you out in life, right? I'm not just giving you $1 because, like, I don't give you $1. I don't give you any money for a bogey, right? We're going for pars or better. So, working hard gets you a reward. So if you work hard and you make it happen, you get a reward. And that's the way business goes. That's the way life goes. Not always, right? We're always, we're going to miss that putt. We're going to, one of our business ventures is going to fail. I mean, my very first apartment building was an absolute, I shouldn't say an absolute failure, because I think over the 3 years we owned it, I think I made like 1% on my money combined total. So I did it, not a complete failure. I made $1 or $2, but golly, was it a pain in the butt. I had to work really hard to make sure that it didn't fall apart. I had to do everything. So, and I've talked to my son about that, how hard some of these things are. And, I don't know. It's, there's so many different things that I think about with the kids and what I want to do and how I want to work it. And then I try to, I don't want to be that overbearing dad either. That is just, you picture it with like old movies, right? Where the dad is, let's look at, Friday Night Lights, right? Where the one dad is like, do you want this state championship ring like I got, blah, blah, blah. And just forcing his son to do whatever it was that made him feel better when he was a kid. And it's like, golly, I just don't want to do that. I want to catch myself before I get to that point, So it's a hard balance to figure out, again, staying introspective and figuring out what mistakes am I doing? What am I not doing? Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a game we play for sure.
Yeah, it's really important to talk about the importance of failure and build that entrepreneurial spirit of resilience, and having him understand the reason that we fall down is so we can learn to get up, and that these things are okay, and to try again, and be encouraging about him trying again. And, that goes from, riding a bike to building the dinosaur, the skeleton dinosaur model that we built last night, or reading a story to dad. A lot of times I think that boils down to me acting against my nature and being patient, because I'm not naturally a patient man, and sticking with it and being consistent with my encouragement to him that, it's okay to fail, and it's okay to try again. And, and then even providing him opportunities, because we had a hard time getting him introduced to soccer, and he didn't want to do it because he wasn't very good with it with the other kids who have been, this is Brazil, they've been playing since they were 3, right? So he's behind the 8 ball trying to learn the sport. And we've got him involved with an after school program where they have a coach and they have a bunch of kids and put him in a situation where it wasn't dad trying to teach him, but like put him in an environment with other children where he could learn, and showed him in that way, like introducing stuff to get him comfortable with, being awkward in sport and not understanding how the sport works, but understanding that, dad says there's an importance in sports, and you need to learn how to function on a team, and, team efforts are really important, and failing's okay so long as you've tried, and then you're okay with your level of trying. And, again, he's 7, so we take it on the level that we can take it and kind of move on with the word. That's important, that I'm not, shaking my state championship ring in front of his nose and telling him about how great it is and how he's never going to have it, and that kind of like negative reinforcement. But, it's important. It's really important, and even, I got to say this too. The things that I'm teaching him, I'm repeating to myself, and I have to kind of remind myself, you should probably take your own advice. Yeah. On that one, and not give up and not try. And I find myself kind of, parroting lessons that I should be following. So.
We're at church the other day, and sitting in like a small group type conversation, and I was talking to my wife, and I was like, it's like our kids walk around with a little mirror, right? And they like to show us what it is like they're doing something because we showed them how to do that. So like if we're not happy with something they're doing, they like to look at a mirror, and then we like to look at that and go, crap, that's totally because I did this, or that's because I did these things, right? And they're just walking around with a little mirror that we get to see ourselves, and why you are a result of me, young man. Like I created this monster, and now I have to deal with it, right?
Right.
My Adam is a perfectionist. He wants to be successful at everything the first time he does it. And I can't imagine where he got that from. So, it's difficult for him to not do well at something, right? So, one thing, Sarah Blakely, I don't know if you know who she is. She's the inventor of Spanx, right?
Yes.
So she just recently sold it, if I recall correctly. But one thing that my wife told me about, so I introduced my wife to Sarah on some podcast or something or other, right? And then she went down a rabbit hole and started listening to other stuff. She came back, she goes, one thing that she talked about, that her dad every night at the dinner table would ask each of the kids, what did you fail at today? And they needed to explain what they tried and failed at and what they learned from that failure. And if they did not have a failure, then they were in trouble for not trying something new that day and not trying something that was difficult. And I was like, golly, that is phenomenal, right? Because I don't necessarily talk about my failures with my kids, right? And I need to do that a little bit more. But now, so I'm trying, and it's that same thing you talked about before, that exercise I've got to do it over and over again, is have those conversations, like, hey, buddy, what did you fail at today? Let's talk about it. Let's celebrate what you failed at, because that means you're trying something new. And one day it was just as simple as I did not get a single good kick playing football today. And I was like, well, why not? That's awesome that you tried. Like, you said, not a single good kick. How many tries did you do? And then he'd tell me how many tries. Okay, well, let's go out and practice. Like, you're not going to get good at kicking until you go out and practice, right? That's a great job. Yeah. Now we learned that that's not the best way to do it. Let's try something else. We learned we need to practice more. So, I'm still trying to sharpen that tool. I don't do it very well, and I don't represent it very well. And I want to do that a little bit more. Like, what did you fail at today? Like, even like I failed at starting this podcast on time, right? We were late to start the podcast because I didn't manage my medical appointments properly, right? So it's one of those things I need to do better at managing my calendar, buddy. That's just one thing I failed at today.
Sure.
So it's, I love that you mentioned the teaching them to fail well. And that's something that I really enjoyed. I'm really happy that my wife brought that up too, because she's a perfectionist just like I am. So we need that reminder, like, okay, it's okay to fail. You have to.
It's okay to fail.
Lewis Howe, I think it was, that I was listening to, where he's like, look, the only way to get good at something is to suck at it first. Like, you cannot be really good at something unless you failed at it first. Like, you got to be bad first. So teaching that to the
kids. 100 times to get it right once. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah, for sure. But resilience is a trait, resilience is a trait in kids, and that stuff gets picked up early on. So encouraging that from a young age is definitely a wonderful way to encourage the development of that trait.
I just hope I do it well, right? That's so difficult.
Again, with self-awareness. Yeah. It's so much better. I truly believe we're ahead of 95% of everybody if we're simply self-aware of the things that we're doing.
You're not wrong. Yeah, for sure. All right. So tell me the businesses that you're doing now. Tell me a little bit more about them, because I know you got a couple different things going on. So everything from coaching with the Bootstrap Millionaires to the CI stuff. So tell me a little bit about those businesses and what you're doing over there.
Yeah. So I'm pursuing a passion with my Bootstrap Millionaire project, and trying to creating a system, and in the process of publishing a book that I wrote, and developing an academy, a university, if you will, for online resources for entrepreneurs who want to bootstrap their businesses, and setting up an appropriate model with mindset and opportunity and conversion of a person's skills and assets into a business, and then growing that business. I didn't have a formal business education, so all the things that I've learned about business have been through, the rooms of entrepreneurs organization, or, organizations like GoBundance, and, I picked it up along the way. So codifying, distributing that information, that's important to me. I have another practice with applied behavioral psychology, where I'm utilizing applied behavioral psychology with established businesses to really hone in on what their business problems are, and then resolving them with the right kind of people and structures within the business. Again, a lot of fun for me because I get to work with entrepreneurs and work with business owners and decision makers who are responsible for profit loss in organizations to fix problems and become more successful than they already are. And then here in Brazil, I partnered with a couple locally, and we have a real estate development company, and we're buying land and building single family homes on spec for sale. In addition to that, there's two other businesses here in the pipeline. A couple of friends and I. They are just in case that's not enough. Yep. I got a couple who we're spinning up a car rental business, and then I'm looking at the acquisition of a high-end hair salon here, and where I live outside of Sao Paulo in Ribeirão Preto. And so there's I kind of view it as, since I've got, 2 countries and 2 residences that I essentially have 2 P&Ls, and I want to have them to be self-sustaining on both sides so that I can keep assets in both countries and have that managed appropriately. And, as I mentioned before, as being a person who's not incredibly patient, I like to have a lot of balls in the air. It's, like the juggling, moving back and forth on all the different stuff. So I live here in Brazil most of the time. So I'll be here for, 5 weeks this time, and I'll be returning to the States on April 10th, and be there for a couple of weeks, and we'll handle a couple of client matters and a few trainings and psychological workshops that I was talking about. And my wife just got her approval on her N400, so she's going to be taking her citizenship examination and becoming, God willing, and studying for becoming a citizen of the United States. And I'm sure that's going to go great, and we'll be able to celebrate that with her in Orlando.
That's
Like
awesome.
going to Disney.
Of course.
Because we're there.
Why not,
Tremendous. Always.
That's awesome.
She loves the mouse. What can I say? She loves the mouse.
Awesome. The House of Mouse. And you've got a ridiculous Airbnb down there in Orlando. So if anybody's looking for a House of Mouse place to stay, they can reach out to you for that. To tell you
we got a crazy 7-bedroom, 6-bathroom in Champions Gate right outside the resorts, and another one coming online here in Windsor Isle. That home should be done in a couple of months. That's a 10-bedroom, 8-bathroom that's going to be up and running. So
is it going to be as insane as the first one?
The intention is to be overly insane, just the same as the first one. So we'll put a little link in the podcast there out for everybody so they can see.
For sure.
Mouse house.
Send it over to me, and we'll get it put in the show notes, as they say. I mean, I don't know what show notes are yet, because this is the beginning of the podcast, but we're going to make show notes, I'm told.
We're going to get it in there.
At the time of this recording, honestly, I still don't even have a name for my podcast. So there's going to be a name before it gets published, but I still don't even have a name for this.
There'll be a link in there too, to the mouse house at bootstrapmillionaires.com. Bootstrapmillionaires.com.
Yeah. There you go. Bootstrapmillionaires.com. But I love that passion, though, because you saw what it took on your side, and now you're like, okay, well, I want to give back to other people, and you've that's been kind of a consistent thing throughout this entire conversation I've had with you is that involvement with other people and bringing people along with you and showing people how it's done. And I mean, it's there are plenty of people out there who would love to do this and didn't know that it was possible, right? And when they hear a story like yours and they see something happen like that, and then they realize, wow, that person did it, and they're teaching people how to do it. This is amazing. Like, they're showing other people how to do it. There's some purpose there.
Purpose and community.
Golly, it's lovely. Purpose and community. I freaking love it. But all right, was there anything that you would like to cover before we wrap up? Anything that I missed? Anything you want to talk about? We've got time, so whatever.
Oh yeah, no, tremendous. It's really been, I really appreciate you having me on the show. It's tremendous to be a part of the podcast, and to be, if not the first guest, then the best guest so far. I thank you for that opportunity. Obviously I'm quite humble. I have an award for it, a trophy back here somewhere that you might be able to see for my humility. You built
yourself, probably.
That I built myself. And I awarded myself for my humility. No, it's really great to be able to talk about the background and to be able to talk about, my experiences with being a father and how important and in fact impactful that has been in my life. And then there were some really great reminders today on how the lessons that I've learned in fatherhood and in my family have reflected into my business and into my behavior, my personality, and how I carry myself in this world. And it's really been quite a journey to look back on how far we've come, my family in the last few years. And, very, very, very blessed, very, very blessed to have that opportunity and to be able to speak here today. So thank you for that opportunity and for those wonderful reminders and my notes that I wrote down on what I can do with my son to help him develop better.
Awesome. Well, hopefully, I'm sure some other people wrote some notes as well. I really appreciate you taking the time. Your story is awesome. I love watching dads who are involved.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Want to do this stuff and want to make an impact, a positive impact in their families' lives and other people's lives. So it's awesome to watch. I'm very happy that our paths crossed and that we're now in a accountability pod together. So
indeed.
Greatly appreciate it. You said April 10th. That'll be 2 weeks before our third kiddo is due, so we'll kind of see how that goes. If you're here, if we could find some time to get together, that'd be awesome.
That will absolutely happen. We'll be out that way, and we'll be in the Tampa area, and come out and knock on your door, providing you're not in the hospital or recently returned.
Yeah, well, if we are in the hospital, you can still knock on the door. Just come in, clean the house up, get some food ready, get it all set up for me.
Yeah,
we're good to go.
We'll absolutely. I'll totally hire a cleaning. I'll hire a cleaning lady and a cooking lady for you to help you out. No problem.
There we go. That's what
I'd be glad to.
Who not how? Who not how?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much again for jumping on. It was awesome to hang out and chat with you, get to know a little
much
bit
appreciated
story. Looking forward to our next conversation, brother.
I'm glad to do it. I'm here for you. Good talking with you, my friend.
Reach out to Dave if he's going to be. I'm positive he'll be able to help you if you're at all interested in being an entrepreneur or getting a little bit stronger. I'm sure that Dave will be able to help you out. So, all of his links will be in the show notes, and we'll talk to you guys on the next one.
Thank you all. Much appreciated.
Later, bro.
Thank you so much for listening to the BizDad podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.